We had that thing funded 10 times. The least amount was in October 23 for 450 million bucks. I couldn't get the investors to take it. And that's when I kind of said, screw you guys. It all kind of blew up. But yeah, I apologize for the scar tissue. Sometimes hard things actually learn more than positive things. But it was a great vision, great strategy. And if we had that $500 million in the balance sheet right now we'd be world dominance, right? So as you look at the macro conditions, the headwinds, the whole thesis and the whole reason why we wanted to do it so quickly was we kind of forecasted, and our thesis was that these things that are happening would be happening, and the best time to grow and build a great business oftentimes are during challenging times. Superior execution wins, and so that's unfortunately didn't happen. So scar tissue, lessons learned, move on. Let's go.
That's right. And hey, we're already rolling, guys. This is our another Snapper Chat podcast. Today we've got the infamous Mr. Greg Butterfield. And you have had a very eclectic career um, over the last, 20, 30 years, probably?
We'll
Maybe.
leave it at 20 and let people extrapolate
Yeah.
and look at the color of the hair and let them make their own decisions.
That's it. But really, I mean, again, it's an honor to be able to have you on our podcast. Lately, we've been interviewing all the Golden Door Award winners in the solar industry. Golden Door Award winner is somebody that goes out there and does 100 installs in a calendar year. A lot of these guys are from Utah. They've just come fresh off of their mission. And so they're sharing their experience with that and how they've been able to go out there and change their lives, not just in solar, they're also in pest, they're in alarms, they're selling windows, everything door to door. And so it's a incredible industry. I know that you've been involved in a couple different industries, but really today, Greg, I want to talk about foundations for success. We want to talk about scaling and leadership. We want to talk about the lessons that you've been able to learn over your career, as well as advice that you've got for people on the right type of growth mindset that they need to have in order to achieve success. So my first question I'd really love to ask you, and I don't think I actually got to ask you this when we got to work with each other for several years at Lumio, but what was the younger Greg Butterfield doing back when you were in middle school, 15, 16 years old, back in high school? What was your goal? What did you want to do back when you were in middle school, high school, and those early college years?
So some of it I don't want to say because I don't want to incriminate myself. I don't want it recorded. But hey, I've always been an entrepreneur. First company I ever started was when I was in junior high, and I was doing lawn care. When I got 16, I bought an old truck and I took care of yards. And gosh, when I was in high school, I participated in a business class called DECA, Distributed Education Clubs of America. Some of you guys have heard of the airline JetBlue. David Neelam and I were two buddies. He's now created Azul, and he's now on to Breeze, which is a several billion-dollar airline. And so my entire life, I've always been infatuated with growth and leadership and how do you grow and build businesses? How do you provide a great customer experience, a great customer journey while driving shareholder value, while making a bunch of money? How do you make the world a better place? What trends are coming? And so I could say early on, I didn't grow up with money. My parents weren't rich. I had to work hard. Fortunately, I had a dad that taught me that sometimes hard work makes up for brains or makes up for experience. I remember when I was a kid, gosh, he told me we had an acre and our bottom pasture was being flooded, so he had me dig a big ditch to create a French drain. My friend Todd had a tractor, and I'm like, let's just go get the tractor and let's dig the hole. And my dad gave me a pick and a shovel and a rebar, and he said, no, I want you to dig this thing 7 feet deep and 100 feet long, and let's go to work. And so fortunately, I had a dad that didn't try to make my life easy, made it hard, and taught me the principles of the law of the harvest. And so that's my background. Didn't grow up with money. I've worked since I was in seventh grade. Started first as a janitor. I take the junior high bus to the elementary, and I'd vacuum crayons and clean bathrooms, and done a lot of different jobs. So, and every one of them I've loved. Everyone's been fantastic. I've always learned something, and it's been good.
Love it. What would you say was your first big win that you got, and when was that? Obviously, you've had huge wins in your career. Vivid Solar going public. You've had a ton of wins, but what would you say was your first one, and what was the experience with that?
The thing that probably impacted my life more than anything else, when I was 19, I decided to forego college. I was the first person in my immediate family that ever went to college, but I quit college and I went on an LDS mission. I went to Chicago. I was in tough towns, and there I learned how to try to create balance in your life, try to find purpose and meaning. Why do you do things? But an LDS mission, you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You have personal time, personal study, leadership. You try to become the best version of yourself. And then you go out from 9 o'clock until 9 p.m. And your whole goal is to go out and do good in the world, make the world a better place, and help other people. And it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I just got back from skiing Big Sky, a great ski resort in Montana. I went to a boutique store. My daughter was buying a coat, and the lady is from Chicago. And I told her that I lived there, and I said I was during the world's worst winter. And she said 1978. She knew exactly what it was. But it was 30 below zero. You're outside, 12 hours a day. You're knocking on hundreds to thousands of doors. And I can't tell you how many times in my life when life's got tough, I look back on that experience and I said, I survived that. I can do anything. College was easy compared to that LDS mission, but professionally, first win probably came from while I was going through college. I didn't have money. And so it was the birth of technology. We were going from industrial age to the information age. And so I'd go to school from 6 in the morning till 10. I'd then go and sell computers from 10 until 7. I'd then take evening classes, and I'd study till 1, and I'd do it all again the next day. And I was fortunate to make $150,000 a year while I was going to college. My average graduating class at the time was $27,000. So I've always
That's
worked hard. I've played hard. I've had a good life. So my first win was probably while I was in college, getting into the technology age, which then allowed me when I graduated, instead of being an investment banker, which I always wanted to be, I ended up starting, growing, and building several software companies. And I've been fortunate to be part of 10 plus software companies that right place, right time, birth of a new industry. And I've either as an operator or as an investor been involved with 10 companies that have sold for $1 billion. And I've sold companies for 10 million, and they've been just as fun.
That's awesome. I think inspiring for a lot of people because we always tell people in the door to door industry and in the solar industry that we're going to be the next generation's greatest entrepreneurs. And I genuinely believe that. I think we're in an industry where there's no cap. We've got people brand new coming out. They're able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. I remember when it was you, me, Zach Hillstead, and Oscar Luna. We were at the Dallas Cowboy Stadium at the first Christmas party. And I told you, we're going to help create 100 millionaires. And you said, no, no, no. You said, we're going to help create 300 millionaires. And we went out, we did it. And, it's again like I think you were an investment banker. You probably weren't doing door to door that entire time, right? But when we were at Lumio, then it was a door to door focused company, right? So what would you say, looking back, were some of the key decisions that propelled you to have Lumio be one of the largest solar companies at the time in America?
Yeah, so can I start a little bit before that? The message that
Yeah.
I'd like to share, it's interesting that people always look to their leader, their manager, the CEO, and they want them to tell them what they should do with their lives. What's the vision for Lumio? What's the vision for Vivint Solar? Well, that one, we were right place, right time. It sold for $3.2 billion. And we made hundreds and hundreds of millionaires who made a lot of people made a lot of money. The thing that I find interesting right now in life, I just got off the phone with a young man that I've gotten to know as a friend, and he said, "Greg, he was asking me questions about what should I do with my life." And I asked him, I said, have you sat down to take the time to figure out your 2025 annual operating plan? You expect a CEO to have a vision, a mission. You want to have core values. Uh, my message would be you need to be intentional with your life. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. I'm 65. I don't need to work. I was at work at 7:30 this morning. My life is intentional. I have my personal vision for 2025, good husband, good dad, good friend, defender and follower of truth, best version of myself, help others be the best version of themselves. My mission is be where I'm supposed to be. I have 6 core values: faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, fun. Each one of those goals in 2025, I've written down with my wife. We're going to knock off 2 national parks. We're going to go on 2 vacations. First one's Bora Bora. We're then going to go to Costa Rica. We're going to get on a catamaran. We're going to go mountain biking. Uh, and so for sales reps, knocking doors, making a bunch of money, it's very simple. How many doors you knock on 100 doors, how many open, how many sits do you get, how many qualified leads do you get, how many installs do you get? Well, if you knock on 100 doors and you get one install and you want to make a certain amount of money, it's just reverse math. If you want to make $1 million, you want to make 500,000, you want to make 100,000, how many doors do you need to knock on? And then you follow up with the customers and everything else. And so I guess my point would be now's the great time. You're younger in your life. Uh, when you're 65, you're like Greg Butterfield. What do you want to have accomplished? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? How important is, fun? How important is, how much money do you want to make? Plan your life out, man.
Yeah, live with intention, live life by design, and I like how you said that. Put together like an operating agreement for your life, not just for your business, but for your life. And you've got friends, fitness, family, faith, fun. And I remember you talking about that kind of things at Lumio, and I think like everybody really believed in the vision and like what we stood for. We want to create a home experience elevated, and so it's kind of cool to hear you now saying the same things that you were saying 2 years ago, and you're still living it. You know, it's like you're saying, like you're 65, you don't have to work. You still showed up at 7:30 this morning, and you're still going. It's awesome. So, um, what are you working on nowadays? I know that you're still involved with like Sage Creek Investments, right? What are
Yeah.
you still?
So
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I'm not running a company, I've got a family office. So I've got a group of partners that are all seasoned operators. So someone that's been a CFO of a public company, a general partner from Denton's, the world's largest law firm. I have a person that was the CRO at CrowdStrike, mega billion dollar security company. And so what we do is we go into early stage companies to later stage companies, and we deploy best practices, things that we've been able to do, positive and negative. I mean, hey, you mentioned Lumio. Lumio was very close to being the eighth wonder of the world, right? And it didn't make it. And so I've got to take ownership and responsibility from that. And that's the great part about life is you learn oftentimes more from your failures than your successes. But I'm investing in companies. My largest company's 200 million in revenue. My smallest one that's kind of exciting right now, a young man that was a minor league baseball player. His dad and I had worked together. He called me up and said, "Can you help my son? He's got this idea for creating a company." And so when you put blackout under your eyes, it's hard to get off. And so he got online and he said, all right, if you have charcoal and you put these chemicals together, then it will take it off. Then he found out that it also cured acne. A lot of athletes, because you're wearing pads and shoulders and stuff, you get acne, between the ages of 18 to 25. And so he said, I want to create this business and I want to see if I can sell it. And so he was going to go buy a manufacturing plant and do all the stuff. And I said, no, the most successful companies start with sales. There's not a better career in the world than being a salesperson. So I said, let's stand up a website and let's see if we can sell it. Well, this company started in May of 24. We did 8.5 million last year. And he's
Wow.
got a 92% gross margin. He's 24 years of age and he's going to have a $20 million business this year. And he owns most of it and I own some. And this past week, we had Conor McGregor in. There's a new group out of the East Coast. David's created a company called the Bare Knuckle Fighting Club. It's the next UFC. And you're going to see his company, Ball Boys, which is an acne, a skincare for athletes, a skincare for men and women. And it's killing it. So yeah, he's 20 million bucks, not counting what's going to happen with Conor McGregor and Bare Knuckle Fighting Club on the mat. Everything's going to be done. Commercials will be his company. So it's something as small as a startup, and it's a $50 million software company. It's a $100 million construction company. So still very engaged, having fun, learning lots of stuff, and hanging out with people that teach me new stuff every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely are involved in multiple businesses. I think it's kind of cool. You have the family office. That's probably something that a lot of people would strive to do, right? Um, Talking about leadership, what would you say are some of the biggest leadership lessons that you've learned while scaling these companies, and specifically Lumio too. I'd love it if we could talk about it. Like, what were some things that you felt like you did that helped propel them to be one of the biggest? I love how you call them like it could have been the eighth wonder of the world, because it could have been, right? Like massive, massive, massive. So what looking back, like what were some decisions that you did to blow it up in the way that you did in such a short amount of time, and then maybe what are some lessons that you've learned along the way too with that?
Yeah, so it starts first with a why or a purpose or a cause. Lumio, the vision behind it was that we knew that the market was going to consolidate. We knew that there were going to be headwinds. And so instead of trying to grow and build something organically, we pulled multiple companies together to get big really fast because we knew that you needed size, you needed scale, and there wasn't time to kind of maybe start small and grow organically. And gosh, we created $1 billion business in 1 year, which is unheard of. How did it happen? You had leaders that led from the front. They ate last. They were willing to give up their companies for a greater cause. You had cool guys like Oscar and John and Brian and Rex and all these guys that helped start it. It wasn't me. It was them. They deserved the credit. They were willing to share what they had. And so it takes leaders that, are servant based. And that's why Lumio first started. Then it falls into, accountability. It's a vision. It was the home elevated. It was more than, it was the whole home experience. The details are important. Lumio, you had the elevated roof, the icon. The word Lumio itself was, lumen's how you measure light, Mio's mine. So it's my light. Everything once again being very intentional. There's accountability. There's all kinds of stuff that's there. Lumio failed because there were 12 interest rate hikes. We were focused on loans, and I selected the wrong investor. So if you look at building a company, you've got 5 stages from ideation to proof of concept, traction, scale, and then eventually an exit. You've got to have the right investment partner that scales throughout that whole life cycle. And we selected a debt instrument or a credit instrument instead of somebody that's trying to go and build an amazing company. That was our downfall. We had 10 plus times where we had an opportunity to raise money and or sell the business. Some instances over $1 billion. And I was not able to get that done. I love Jocko. I love the book ownership. That's a good leadership principle. Quit blaming people. Quit, coming up with excuses. I can tell you all the reasons why Lumio struggled and why it eventually failed. 12 interest rate hikes, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, Greg Butterfield failed. I didn't get a deal done. If I did, then we'd have hundreds of millions of dollars in our bank account. Right now, we'd be gobbling up the industry. Didn't do it.
And we were there for it. I remember at one point I was at a conference with, I remember like Taylor McCarthy and Danny Pesci with those guys. And there was somebody on stage. I don't remember what his name was, but he said, Lumio's going to fail. He said, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think he was just talking about all the founders and he just said it's not going to work. And at the time, like I got defensive and I was like, dude, you're talking about us. Like nobody even knows who you were. And because everybody knew who the Lumi Bros were. Remember the Lumi Bros?
Oh yeah,
And
Lumio Bros were you guys were rocking, man.
yeah, number one solar sales team in America. But is that just what it was? Was it too many people in the kitchen, too many founders, or what do you think it was?
Well, so it's two things. It was, well, three things. It was macro conditions. It wasn't just Lumio. I mean, everybody's struggling. You guys saw the earnings call from Sonova a couple days ago. They had to announce an ongoing concern, which is usually not sufficient cash to run the business for a year. And so you've got big public companies that have struggled. It wasn't, it's not just Lumio, it's the macro conditions. You've got Trump's press announcement, drill, baby, drill, Canadian pipeline, maybe elimination of tax credits. Some of those things are the headwinds. So macro conditions, headwinds, the wrong financial partner relative to what we were trying to accomplish. We should have had a financial partner that wanted to grow and build something over 5 years versus just get their interest payments. And then it was very aggressive. I give the original founders credit for being willing to share their businesses with us, but it's almost impossible. Mergers of equals are hard because everybody looks at somebody else as a competitor and someone they need to kill versus going out and solving a customer's problem or growing and building something amazing. And so we had instances where when you try to throw a bunch of cultures together, you've got company names around things, you've got multiple years. That was very aggressive. probably too aggressive. So I want to give the guys credit that they were willing to share, and I think that people were humble and they did their best. But uh, once again, my mistake trying to do something too fast, and it's hard. I mean, look at a family. You know, someone gets divorced. You try to blend two families together. Maybe the new couple get along well, but the family members hate each other.
Yeah.
We tried to do that with five companies. That's uh, not insane, but it's certainly aggressive, and it failed.
It was exciting at the time, though. I remember the slogan was "Year one, we're one." Remember that? And we were here
I
for it.
remember, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember coming up with it, and that's the reason the theme was "Year One, We're One" was to fight that whole challenge of people trying to kill each other or use our systems or use, this geography. It's once again, I'll say it was very aggressive, too aggressive.
Yeah. Whose original brainchild was Lumio? Was that something that you came up with? Was it something that the founders came together? Like, how did that originally start?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of people in the industry that have kind of a common vision. Let's go, you know, land and expand. Let's land a customer. And then once we delight the customer, do a successful install, then let's sell a bunch of other products. So that wasn't mine. That wasn't Lumio's. I think a lot of people have that common vision. And full transparency, I had just built Vivint Solar. We took it public in 10 months. It sold for $3.2 billion. The founders had already gotten together. I didn't find them. Jonathan Gibbs, give him credit. Jonathan Gibbs won out. He and Rex and Yumi went and interviewed like 100 different EPCs in the major solar friendly geographies. And they narrowed it down to seven, eight, nine different companies that they were looking to wrap together.
And
And it
Deca
ended
and
up with
De and Deca was one of them.
so it was Deca, it was Lyft, it was Set, it was
AKE.
uh, AKE Atlantic Key Energy, and they all came together. And then as we were going through the process, without providing too much information, we were out to raise $110 million to give all the founders money so that we could roll it together, and then to give us $10 million operating capital to grow and build it. As part of the investment process, I got a call on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Goldman Sachs is pulling out, and they're the big dog, the gorilla in the financial industry. And what will happen is people they follow, right? There's not a lot of leaders. And when they see a big guy pull out, then we were at risk of others belling within minutes. Two or three others bailed on doing the funding. And the reason for that was they didn't feel like I was fully invested. They were betting. When you invest, you look at macro conditions, you look at total addressable market, competitive advantage, but ultimately you bet on the team, right? I mean, you can have a great industry and if you've got crappy employees, it fails. And they felt like I wasn't fully invested, and we'll leave it at that. And so they wanted me to step in and take a more active role. And that's when I got involved full time. Before that, I was consulting and I was working with the founders as an advisor in my family office, and then left the family office to go run it.
You remember the all hands meetings that we used to do? And just, I mean, dude, we had thousands of reps in the company, right? All across the country, not just in Texas, but Florida, right? Arkansas, Oklahoma, all over the country. What would you be doing before those calls? Is it something where like you were getting prepared and maybe you were a little bit nervous, or just because you've done this for so many years, do you just like hop on and like almost like not necessarily wing it, but what would you be doing before those calls to prepare for the all hands calls that were so important to everybody in the company? Because that's where we were learning about the culture, what we stand for, what we believe. You were casting the vision for us. So, what would you be doing before those calls?
I would say if you don't get the blood pumping and if you don't have adrenaline rush, then you've passed your valid, you need to move on, right? And so, yeah, things get easier, but the butterflies are still there. I'm a adrenaline junkie. So, I remember, one earnings call I was doing on a company I took public. We're still editing the script, and that one needs to be very specific because you've got legal risk if you say wrong things. And so you do write a script and then you have to read the script. and it's literally seconds and before the call, and we've got hundreds, if not 1,000 people on this earnings call. The script's not done, and my personality, I'm like, this is so freaking awesome, And my admin's like, Frida's like, aren't you scared? And I'm like, this is so cool. And so I love that rush. But I've said before, you should live your life intentionally, personal, business wise. And so, yeah, there was a lot of preparation. We knew what the messages were. You'll recall any business, there's four things that are important. What are your revenues? What are your profitabilities? What are you doing for your employees? And what are you doing for your customer? And so you'll recall normally in those meetings that the culture was we wanted to take accountability. We wanted to return and report our performance. You wanted to do knowledge transfer, and you wanted to train your employees on things that would make them better at their jobs. And then you wanted to show appreciation. At least I wanted to show appreciation. So you'll recall we'd talk about the numbers. We'd talk about, what was happening in the industry. We would do knowledge transfer on things that we were doing to fix or to improve people's jobs. And then I always tried to end on our core values. You'll recall we compared creating Lumio to climbing Mount Everest. And
The
the
Sherpa,
number
the
one,
Sherpa,
yeah, be the
be the
Sherpa.
Sherpa. Yep.
And so we always had a hoodie, and we'd hand those out. And I personally wanted to tell people thanks. Two words that are not used enough are thank you. Uh, Two other words that aren't used enough is I'm sorry when you make a mistake. And so I loved it, man. Those meetings were fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they weren't always face to face. What I really liked the most was, uh, you know, you were in Texas. I love going to Texas and going to 20 different cities, and you'd start, with sharpening the saw leadership. And gosh, we'd start at, 7 in the morning. We'd have people there. And then, gosh, I remember one night we were out until like 1 o'clock at night, and people are still just learning from each other and hanging out and being part of a tribe and part of a culture. And that's what I missed the most was, those one-on-ones face to face, because that's when I feel the juice and that's when I learn. And that's still why I'm still working, hard. Is in life you grow or you decay. You can't just stand still. If you're not intentional, if you're not doing certain things to become a better person, you're going backwards.
100%. How do you see the solar industry evolving over these next couple of years? Like, where do you think are some opportunities for people in the solar industry? Do you see yourself getting back into solar? Where do you think the solar industry is heading 2025, 2026, and really through the end of the decade with the new Green Deal?
So yesterday I had an opportunity to talk with one of Trump's major advisors. I've got a chance. I've been invited to go play golf in Mar-a-Lago with JD Vance here in the next few weeks. I had a precursor to the last night's press conference. And so I kind of understand where President Trump's going vicariously through a guy that's actually out of Austin, Texas, who is a government affairs person, and he's intimately involved with the people that are leading the country. I think that, like any industry, you're going to have consolidation. If you look at the solar industry or you look at the wild, wild west, we're still less than 5% market penetration. You have a lot of companies. You have thousands of companies. Eventually, every industry kind of consolidates, and you go from the masses to, an oligopoly, or you have 10 or so people that end up making up 65, 70% of the total marketplace, and then the 40% are the small long tail. And so I still think we're early. I still think there's chance for companies to start up and become, top 10. I think, like any new industry, people who build a company on an old world model, things evolve, government policy changes. So I still think, Sunrun's clearly the leader, and they'll always be, top leader in residential. But I still think there's an opportunity for others that maybe don't even exist today to still come up and be one of the top 10 in the industry. So I still see high growth. I still see opportunity. I built a lot of companies. Some of the biggest companies I've ever built were in down markets. You can make money when the market goes up or when markets go down. Now's when people consolidate. I've been on the sidelines for a year plus, couple of years. I'm just starting to get re-engaged in solar. So my family office, we're investing in some strategies that hopefully you'll hear about in the next little while.
I love to hear that because I understand that you're involved in multiple businesses, right? Like it's not like you're just a solar guy. I'm just a solar guy, right? Like for the most part, right? Like we've been in solar for 3, 4 years. We do nonprofit work too, mental health and things like that. But just because a lot of our audience is in solar, I'd love to hear any advice that you got for people that are currently trying to break into the solar industry 2025. Obviously, solar is still a super competitive industry. Like you just said, we're only at 5% market penetration. Our goal is to be at 25, 30% market penetration by the end of the decade. So, what advice would you have, Mr. Butterfield, for somebody that wants to break into the industry and dominate?
So, what I would say is I would take a longer term perspective. I'd make sure that I partnered and I was with a team that kind of matched my core values. I would want to work with people. If I wanted to be the best of the best, then I'd align myself with the best of the best. I would measure, I would hold myself accountable, I'd be intentional. If I was a solar sales rep, I'd want to align myself with someone that had the financial wherewithal and the backing to be able to survive, because I still think that we're going to have some challenges from a financial standpoint. I would align myself with superior operators relative to EPCs. All EPCs are not created equal. To be candid, on the Lumio side, there were some instances where maybe we were too aggressive on just making money instead of looking longer term. There were bad installs. I think the industry in general was that way. It wasn't just Lumio. Tell me any other industry where you can be paid in full before you've actually provided the goods or services. That was probably wrong, right? Uh, and so I would say find a company, same core values, common vision, financial strength, someone that appreciates salespeople. Find good EPCs, quick installs, fast pay. Somebody could really dominate the market right now if they had a balance sheet and they decided they're going to start paying M1s or paying money to help commission only sales rep get some money up front, even though the financial companies can't do that anymore. Um, yeah, align yourself with people that are better and smarter than you.
Do you have any information on like the Sonova situation?
No, all I know is what was announced in the earnings call. And that was they just announced an ongoing concern. An ongoing concern means that you do not have enough money on your balance sheet to, it's as a public company, the government regulates you. And when you announce an ongoing concern, it's basically saying that there's some concerns about the strength of your balance sheet.
Will that
But I think
affect
you're gonna, I think you're gonna see new finance products come out. I mean, it, if a company goes out of business, Lumio, it's not going to kill the solar. If somebody has a hard time, uh, it will still survive. The concept behind solar is it needs to be, there's nuclear, small nuclear reactors and other stuff I'm looking at, but it makes so much sense, right?
what does happen though if like because it wasn't just Lumio's Titan. People are saying it's going to happen to Legacy. They're saying it's going to happen to Freedom Forever. So what happens if a Freedom and a Legacy does go out as well, or this next year? How does that affect the industry?
That's why I don't know that I articulated it well, and I hope that I can do a little better job. When I say there's still an opportunity for a new company to come and still be a leader or be one of the top tens, if you build a company on an infrastructure that existed in solar 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, and the industry changes dramatically, then some companies that already have an infrastructure based on an old world model and an industry that's so rapidly changing, 5 years, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, might be a model that doesn't scale. Or if you pick the wrong financial partner, why is Lumio out of business? I picked a financial partner that didn't want to go and build a company. They wanted to get their 20 something percent interest rate, and they killed the company because we were paying interest rate that didn't allow us to grow and build and provide better customer experience. And so, the law of evolution or, abundance, new companies will come up. So if one goes out of business, that means there's an opportunity for somebody else. And that's when I say in bad markets, great companies, best companies will survive. There's a bunch of good companies out there. There's a bunch of great EPCs. I was on the phone with one this morning that's smaller. They do 150 million in revenue, but it's a very maniacally focused approach. It's a family-run business. It was a former home builder. They're only in Southern California, and they've got a huge balance sheet. They don't have any debt. They don't have bad deals through any financing company. And I'm not just saying Sonova. I mean, if you've got, and that's where people are going to get hurt is if a Sonova were to go out of business and somebody had 50, 60% of all their deals financed by them and they can't make payments anymore. When you look at the size of a solar transaction, let's say the average home's $50,000 and you've got, X thousands of installs, you can't weather that storm. But to all the sales guys, you're in great shape. Go find another EPC that's doing good.
Yep. Yeah, we always tell people when we're hiring, it's like, hey, the highest paid sales rep has not yet joined our team. And so maybe that's the same for the solar industry too, with like EPCs. So that's kind of exciting. And we always say it like every single time. We don't know what's going to happen, and that's our favorite part. It's going into the unknown. So I appreciate your wisdom and your advice. You were a huge part of when I first started in solar. All I knew was Lumio merger. Like that's all I knew. I'd come from Apricot. I don't know if you remember when we were talking about Apricot Solar with Freedom. And I'd been there for like 2, 3 months and didn't have success. And I came over to Deca for 1 month. We turned into Lumio, and dude, we did 500 installs our first year, which was about 10% of Texas's production, which we did about 5 or 6 thousand installs, $25 million in revenue. And I had never even been in the door-to-door space. I had never been in solar before. And so it personally changed my life. We've been able to change a ton of people's lives. And so you've also changed a ton of people's lives, Greg. And so genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. And, whether Lumio became the eighth wonder of the world or it didn't, like, you personally impacted me, and so I appreciate you for that. You've helped a lot of other people, and I know that you're going to continue to do so. Just the last couple questions. What would you say is the best advice that you've ever received that changed the way that you approach your life? Was it a mentor? Was it somebody from your church? Was it your parents? Who has been somebody that gave you the best piece of advice that you've ever received that kind of changed the way that you approach life and maybe even business?
Yeah, so I don't know that there's one person. There have been hundreds of people that have impacted my life. You've impacted my life, right? And so you said, so two things. So number one, I'd enjoy the journey. And so people say, hey, Lumio failed. Dude, it was freaking awesome. I learned a lot. It was great people. And so too many times, we get task oriented and you're trying to click stuff off. Enjoy the journey, positive and negative. I would say that the other thing that I was impressed, you talked about, having a cause or a why. And I think you referenced mental illness. I would say if you really want, there's a difference between making money and being happy or finding joy. They don't have to be separated, but some people will just change money, but they don't ever really find happiness. I've got friends that have made tens of millions of dollars that aren't happy. And so it kind of goes back to decide who you want to be, what brings you happiness. It's more than just your job. It's other aspects of your life. For me, it's faith, it's family, it's friends, it's fitness, it's fun, all that stuff. But what I've found, if you want to be happy, usually there's a cause where you go out and you do good in the world, right? And so every company I've ever been part of that's been successful, they have a culture where they give back, where there's a service project that's done on a monthly basis. Or we just closed a deal with Jaron Duran, a big baseball player, and his passion's mental illness. He talks about how, a few years ago he wanted to take his life, and now he's got a 9-figure, he's closing a tens of millions of dollars per year contract. And so, we're doing an affiliate thing with him wherever, he influences or sells products, then we donate that money to mental illness because that's what he's passionate about. Lumio, we had Love Lumio. Every company that I've ever been involved with where I'm proud of it. And it's more than just making money, right? And so decide who you want to be, find out what makes you happy. Part of happiness is giving back and making the world a better place. And then I'd find a mentor. If I look back on my life, there are people that I came across. It was Keith Barber when I was 19. It was my dad when I was a boy. It was John Thompson, who's the chairman of the board at Microsoft in 2005. It was Ray Norda in 1994, who's been gone for 18 years. Uh, who was influential in my life. It was Alan Rudd. Find somebody that's decide who you want to be, then find somebody who's done what you want to do. Sit down with them weekly, meet with them on a frequent basis, have accountability, and have somebody help you out. People that are successful often they don't do it on their own. It's it's usually a team effort. So, and then go work for a company where you're surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of guys that are 10 times better than me. And as a result, I've been fortunate to be successful because I'm on the right team.
Incredible. I love the way that you are, because I think a lot of people have this like perception because of what happened with Lumio that like you're upset about it and like your life's over. It's like, no, dude, like the show goes on. And I just look back to like when we first met, it would have been December of 2021 when we were in Arlington, Texas, before the first Christmas party, and you signed Oscar's dollar bill. Remember that? It's like all he wanted was
Yeah.
for you to sign his $1 bill. And I was able to sit up front with you guys, and it was an incredible thing to just like see what we built. And like you said, it was awesome. Like it was awesome. A lot of people learned incredible life lessons that are going to be able to translate for everything they do for the rest of their life. So I guess just like the last question I've got for you is if you did have the opportunity to start Lumio in 2025, right? So kind of like a different market. What would be some things that you would do differently if you could start all over again today and you could start Lumio in 2025?
I would take one company instead of five. I would take a more methodical, thoughtful, slower pace to grow it. But the thesis and the vision that we had behind Lumio still exists, and I still think that it's needed. So I don't know that the vision would change, and I'd make sure I had the right financial partner that wanted to go build a meaningful company that cared about the customer, that cared about the employees. One of my mentors, I told you, Ray Norda, he said, take care of your employees, take care of your customers, and Wall Street will take care of itself. One of the challenges we had at Lumio was it was so focused on just make the money that oftentimes the customer and other things kind of were jeopardized. Um, yeah, so I still think that the thesis that we had at Lumio was great. And, enjoy and embrace failure, man. Fail quick, fail fast, fail often. Michael Jordan, I don't know the exact quote, but basically, he talks about how many tens of thousands of shots that he missed, and all those shots led up to that one shot when there was 10 seconds left that he made. I don't know a single person, I don't care if it's sports or business or anything else, has always had success. I took my grandson skiing the other day. Once a month, I do grandpa camp where I take my grandson one on one. We go skiing or we do an activity. And we got back to the car, and my 6-year-old grandson said, Grandpa, he calls me Papa. I said, I didn't fall. And I asked him, I said, Theo, is that a good thing? He said, What do you mean? And I said, You didn't fall. And so we talked about how it's okay to fall, and falling's a good thing because you're growing and you're exceeding your current capacity. And so I look at Lumio. Gosh, I met some amazing people. We made a bunch of people millions of dollars. We saved a bunch of customers money, and freak, it was awesome, man. And the next thing's going to be better than the last thing. I never look backwards, man. What I'm doing today is better than Lumio. What I'm doing tomorrow is going to be better than what I did last year. So there's always something better. A door closes, a door opens, man. You're never too old to dream a new dream.
There's a reason why the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror, and that's because what you got ahead is way bigger than what we've been through, right? And so I appreciate you for sharing all of that wisdom. You've been an inspiration for us, and again, like it's kind of cool to be able to have you on our podcast 2, 3 years later from the time that we first met, and a lot has happened. You're continuing to do a lot. There's a lot of people in this industry watching this right now, Greg, that are going to want to be future business owners. They've got ideas. Are you doing like a Shark Tank thing with your family office where you let people come in and like pitch you on their idea, and then if it's a good idea, you invest into them? Or
Yeah. So my
so
cell phone
so
number's still the same. My cell phone
yeah.
number's the same. 801 376 9002. And so, if I can help anybody, I've got a team of, several people that are smarter and better than myself. Not going to be able to help everybody, but if there's something that I can do, happy to do it, man. Let's connect.
Awesome. Well, Greg, again, we appreciate you very much. Thank you for being a part of our journey, a huge part of our journey. And just like you said, like when we left Lumio, we turned it into Snapper Academy, and now we're the number one solar sales trading platform in the entire industry. We're partnered up with an awesome EPC called Nevo that, funny enough, actually came from Deca. They didn't join Nevo. They didn't join Lumio. They started up Nevo instead. And so I don't know if you remember them, but we both kind of came from
Is that
Deca, and they just,
is
yep.
that John Frampton?
Tyler Bradshaw. Yep. Tyler
Oh
Bradshaw.
yeah, Tyler.
Yep.
Tyler, I
Yep.
know Tyler.
Yep. He was in a couple pictures with you and Oscar and Bankhead. You remember Ian Atkinson? Ian
Yeah,
Atkinson was like the godfather of the Lumi Bros. You were too. You were the godfather of the
yeah,
Lumi Bros. So
yeah.
again, we genuinely appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on here. I hope everybody took away a ton of again wisdom on again foundations for success, how to scale and how to be a leader, lessons learned, and growth mindset. So again, Greg, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you,
If
guys.
any, Yep. If anybody wants to join and be a part of a part of your future business, all they got to do is reach out to you. You literally put your phone number right there. So that's awesome. We appreciate you. And guys, we'll see you in the next podcast. Let's go.